Welcome to the Modernize or Die podcast, CFML News Edition, where we keep you up to date with everything going on in the Cold Fusion community. We'll share the latest news on events, releases to engines, frameworks, libraries, and tools, as well as spotlighting quality content from the community. Welcome to the Modernize or Die podcast, CFML News Edition. It's February 16th, 2021, and due to some inclement weather everywhere, I'm going solo today. So, sorry guys, you have to listen to me talk the whole time, but hopefully we can get through this. So, thanks to those who are joining us in the chat live. Appreciate it, and we'll go from there. John's already asking questions in the chat. So, is Die the registered trademark, or is it the whole logo? I think it's Modernize or Die is the whole thing. So, not just Die. John would get in trouble, I guess, if we trademark just the word Die. Anyway, so let's get started by thanking our sponsors, Ortus Solutions. Without them, we wouldn't be able to make this podcast. One way, again, to give back to Ortus Solutions is to support CFCasts.com, which is one of our great tools for watching videos and some of the streaming services we put out there. So if you guys go along to CFCasts.com, you can register for a free account, get lots of great content, and there's also paid content for subscribers as well. And as John said, yes, when Texas freezes over. Yeah, the rolling power outages in Kansas and everything else too are, hitting hard. So half the country's covered in white stuff right now. But we'll survive. We also want to thank our Patreon supporters. So we have 33 Patreons right now that are providing 65% of our funding for Modernize or Die podcasts. And the reason that number went up is because a lot of you saw the great perks of being a Patreon supporter. And so some of those people that were paying for CFCast and a Patreon supporter has combined their accounts. And that's really cool to see. And we appreciate you for doing that. And I'm glad that those little perks make it better to add into Patreon. So we'll tell you a little bit more about those new perks for Patreon supporters at the end, but if you go to patreon.com/ortussolutions, you can read more about it, all the different packages we have there too. So hopefully there's a price range that, makes it worthwhile for you to spend your hard-earned cash to make this podcast and other things Ortus Solution does possible. So thank you. Okay, so let's get into the news. So, one thing that popped up this week was a new blog aggregator to replace CF bloggers. So, those of you who don't know, Will just recently passed away, Will Genovese, and he was someone who took over the CF bloggers aggregator from Ray Camden. Ray passed him the keys, and then he got sick and passed away, and sadly, we don't have access to anything there to be able to get control of it. So some of the people at CF Web Tools are trying to revive that site and the aggregator, but at the moment we don't have access to it. There's been a few things that we've tried to do to fix it, but Gregory Alexander has decided to build one of his own, and so he's just released that now too. So let me share a screen for those watching. So he's calling it cfblogs.org, a new Cold Fusion blog aggregator. So he's got quite a lot of information on here about the history and why he wanted to get into it, and what happened, and talking a little bit more about the CF Web Tools guys and what they're trying to do there, and how he's setting it up with the CSS feeds, etc. Also how to add it to your site, and they also have a new Twitter account for it, so check that out. And then he's also talked about the future to see some of those things there, and also he wants to thank Ray, because Ray actually helped him get it updated, and went from there. And Charlie's also, thanked there as well. And Adam Ewens as well. So, good to see everyone working together on this here. You can see some of the comments in here as well. But yeah, just good to see that, we're trying to keep the blog aggregator alive, and that actually helps me find a lot of content for this podcast. So, blog aggregators bring it into the right hashtags inside Twitter, and allows me to find them and filter them, so we can get that there. So thanks Greg for stepping up and doing something for the community, and everyone else who helped him. And if you have a blog that talks about Cold Fusion stuff, make sure you get added to that blog aggregator too, so other people can find your stuff. Okay. So next up, we have a Ortus webinar coming up this month. So Jon Clausen is going to be talking about Stashbots, which is logging and error handling with Elasticsearch powered behind it. So it's a pretty cool tool. We're using it on a few big projects right now, and it's really given us a lot of big wins. And so we're sharing that as a ForgeBox module. It's available on ForgeBox already, but if you want to see what it's doing and how to use it, definitely sign up for that webinar. So we have information up on the Ortus site. So if you follow along here, you can see got the little cool logo, and that is a pretty cool logo, you have to admit. And then the registration link is right here, so you can register as well. And you can see we have previous webinars available. All the recordings are on CFCasts, so you can go check those out there too. But sign up, and again, that information, it's going to be available February 26th, 11 a.m. Central Time. So go register for that whenever you can. Okay, and tonight, February the 16th at 7 p.m., I think that's Central Time. I don't actually have that on here. But John Farrar is going to be doing Docker for the Mid Michigan CFUG. And so we have links to their website, and we have links to the team. I'm going to put those up there in chat for those who are watching. So those links are there. So yeah, sign up for that one. It's free to watch, obviously, and John's doing some pretty cool stuff with Docker, and yeah, it's always good to see community members stepping up and showing how they're doing things and what they're doing. So definitely recommend getting in there and watching that tonight. Mid Michigan CFUG is one of the CFUGs that's pretty regular. So oh, John said no sign up required, just show up to the Teams link. So thanks, John. But yeah, the Mid Michigan CFUG is pretty active. They have them on a regular basis. So show up, support John, and support the group, and keep good content coming out. Okay. We also have an Adobe webinar coming up. The sequel, I know enough to break everything. I confirmed it is Dave Ferguson going to be presenting that. So that'll be February 24th at 8 a.m. Pacific. The link is available. I'll share that in the chat right now. But we also have the registration link. I'll show my screen for those watching at home. And so you can go to cfwebinar/sequel.meetus.adobeevents.com. You can find out a little bit more about it, and you can register there. It's good to see Adobe doing some events. And if you go to the coldfusion.adobe.com portal, you can see all the blog posts and see upcoming events. They have last year's CF Summit listed there, not this year's, just in case you see it and get excited. But hopefully they'll be updating that soon to give us some more information about when this year's is coming around. I got some news on Luis's new book, the 102 Coldbox HMVC Quick Tips and Tricks, that the landing page is finally done. They're doing some final review, so we should have it up here pretty soon, so you can find out a little bit more about that book and maybe get your hands on it too. So the book is action-packed with nice, easy cookbook-style tips and tricks, so it'll be definitely a good read for everybody. I looked through it, and the whole team at Ortus has contributed to that, so there's lots of cool things, and lots of different levels can get a lot of benefit out of that. So that book will be available here pretty soon. Landing page is almost done. And just another reminder about the Ortus community. For those of you who have gone to the Google groups or whatnot, we've imported all that data into the new community. You can see here, it's got a pretty little spaceman there. We got lots of different pieces. We got community events, Lucee extensions, announcements, different box modules, and you can see all the latest content here. It's good to see a lot of different members. I see John's face popping up there talking about the CFUG meeting, and some other community members too. So if you have an account from one of the previous Google groups, your email address should already be imported, so you can log in, do a password reset, and get things going there. But the community's got a lot of great stuff. Trying to put all the Ortus stuff in one place. The Slack is still available, but this is sort of more of a long-lived setup. And actually, we'll talk about one of the things a little bit later, where Brad took something from Slack and posted it here, so it's Google searchable, and they can live longer than Slack history. So definitely a big thing, and we're really happy it's working so well. so well. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about CFCasts. So CFCasts, as we mentioned, we have free and paid content, and we try and release new stuff every Wednesday. So last week we released 3 more videos from the Command Box Zero to Hero workshop. So we have the session on running commands, we have shell features, REPL and CFML commands, and we also have special commands. And so if you go to cfcast.com, you can see the new information that's coming out. And tomorrow there should be new content dropping as well, which we should be expecting some more of the Command Box Zero to Hero workshop videos. So you can see here, we've got the new content just published just 7 days ago. And you can see most of the other content here. And you can see which ones are free, which ones are paid pretty quickly. And if you look at series, you can see all the different series that we have released here. So a lot of good content there. Definitely go check it out. And like I said, if you are a paid Patreon subscriber with, I think it's a $50 or a bronze package or higher, you get your CFCasts subscription included, as well as a ForgeBox Pro account. So if you want to support us, you can just sign up for CFCasts as a subscriber, or if you're a higher dollar Patreon supporter, you get that as included too. Okay, so next up, let's talk about conferences and training. So Nexus is coming up on the 17th, which is tomorrow. So devnexus.com. It's a great Java-related conference. It's got a lot of great speakers, a lot of good content. If we look at the schedule here on the website, you see it's 1 day, but a lot of different sessions. They've got 6 different tracks on that session. So it looks like they have 5 or 6 different tracks. They've got Java platform, Java frameworks, cloud technology, agile architecture, security and practices, and web and security. So a lot of these sessions are obviously Java related, but some of the things are, different. We got serverless environments and everything else. And so check that out for Kubernetes and Docker, and some of the agile stuff is probably pretty friendly as well. So a lot of good content in here. And again, it's a free conference tomorrow, the 17th of February. That's all online. You can go to devnexus.com to get information on that. Okay, coming up soon, we have another conference, Redis Conf 2021. So that's a virtual conference. It's going to be the 20th to the 21st. The call for speakers just ended this weekend, the February 14th. So if you missed your opportunity, sorry, but that we should have more information about who was selected as a speaker coming out soon, and more information about sessions as well. But that's a virtual conference, April 20th to 21st, and again, I think that one is free as well. So we also have a little bit of information about Dockercon. So Dockercon has released their pre-release sign-up page. So if you want to pre-register for Dockerlivecon 2021, you can do that. It's going to be on May 27th, 2021. And it's going to be live, free online experience with lots of demos and products and innovation. And so if you want to register, you can sign up now, and I'm sure they'll send you more information as they get it about different pieces of the conference materials, etc. So Dockercon, always a great conference. I was going through my conference shirts the other day and saw a couple of cool shirts from there. Unfortunately, with this, I'm not sure if they're doing online swag like some of them do, but when they come back to real life, it's definitely a big event. I think there was like 5,000 or 10,000 people the last one I went, so pretty crazy, but lots of fun. So Dockercon is coming up May 27th. So again, you can sign up for that one and get more information as they release it. Okay, we have some workshops coming up. So Ortus is planning on doing several workshops this year, but the first one is coming up here in March. So March 11th to 12th, we're going to be having the Quick workshop led by the creator of Quick himself, Eric Peterson. So you can see a little bit more information on the ortussolutions.com/events page. And so you can see date with Eric, and right here you got the link to go to Eventbrite. The good thing with Eventbrite is it actually has more information about the event as well. So you can find out a little more here. You can sort of see what they'll cover, what the prerequisites are, and some of these we'll do sort of in team. This box latching channel, you also need command box and the command box modules. MySQL 5.7 is what they're using, just so it's a consistent starting point. And then he's got some recommendations for the IDE, including if you are using VSCode, some of the extensions too. So a lot of information here. So the registration has started for that. And again, that is going to be on March 11th and 12th. It's a 2-day workshop, and Eric himself, the creator of Quick, will be teaching that one. So I know that a lot of the Ortus people that are using Quick a little bit are going to be attending that as well, just trying to get up to speed and make sure there's nothing we're missing. Because obviously Eric built Quick, and he's always adding lots to it. It's a well-maintained product, and it's going to be a great workshop. So excited to see that. We also have a few more workshops coming up: Command Box 0 to Hero, Code Box 0 to Hero, and then Code Box Hero to Superhero. So those workshops are going to be planned in upcoming months. If you would like to attend one of these, let us know which one you'd like to attend and maybe what dates work best for you, and maybe we can help schedule out that. We haven't got any final dates right now. We had our first planning meeting for Into the Box 2021. And so we're planning on that to have it in September. We have some dates picked out. We're just finalizing them. So next week I should have the absolute final dates for that. We're getting our call for speakers survey ready right now. So we'll be releasing that soon. So keep an eye out in the next couple of weeks for the call for speakers. And you'll have a couple of weeks to submit some topics there. We are planning on doing 3 or 4 sessions during the day in American time zones, but we're going to do a couple earlier, so that way late time European time we can hopefully get a few community members from the European time zone to help with that. So those like me on the West Coast would have to get up pretty early for the first session, but if you're on the East Coast, it should work for you. You can actually see a lot of sessions. So we're planning on doing say, like I said, 6 sessions spread out with a couple hours basically between sessions. So we have an hour on, hour off, something like that. So we have more time for networking and chit chat between them. And if you got to sneak a few emails in and out between sessions, you can do that too. And so we're planning on doing that, over the course of a week. So there's no double ups, there's no sessions, that you have to worry about FOMO, fear of missing out. Spread it out nice and easy, and then I think that's going to be Monday through Thursday, and we even talked about maybe doing a happy box on Friday where we can just sort of hang out and chit chat and something like that. So we've started the planning process. We got things rolling there, so keep an eye out for a call for speakers soon. And once we do that, we'll be able to tell you more about who's speaking, about what. And so if you've ever thought about speaking before, an online conference is a great way to start. So we can give you some help and guidance too. So put something in, throw your name in the box, and we'll go for that. Into the Box Latam is still planned for December this year, so we're planning it for December 2021. And again, we'll probably have some Spanish and English content for that one, and that'll be online as well. Okay. Now I see in the chat Gary asked about the Content Box webinar that got cancelled. That one there was being run by Jon Clausen. He was working on the Mirror importer, and so I know that he got slammed with holidays and some big deadlines on a couple of his projects, and so we had to reschedule that. He's doing the Stashbox one this month, the webinar. I'll have to check with him and see if he's got a time to get back to us about that Content Box webinar. I know we wanted to get that out there for everybody doing the Mirror imports. I know they're doing a lot of work on Content Box right now, so I'll definitely check in, Gary, and we'll get some more information on that, because I know it's a very hot topic right now. So we definitely want to get that information out to you guys, and we want to get that module finished and published to ForgeBox so everybody can use it. So thanks for asking about that. Okay, so if you do want to find some more conferences, comps.tech is a pretty cool little website. If you check this out here, there's a lot of great content, a lot of different things here. So you can see Nexus is here, but there's also a lot of other things: Developer Week, Cloud World, Node Congress, .NET Days. So pretty much everything you can think of, JavaScript World. a lot of great stuff here. A lot of them are online, some are in person, but obviously COVID is restricting a lot of that. But so if there's a language you're wanting to learn a little bit more about or dip your toes into, maybe you can find a conference and check some of that out. Okay, so next up we're going to talk a little bit about blogs, tweets, and videos of the week. And to start, I would normally start in date order. I usually have the most recent first and go backwards, but Ben Adele kind of had a blog series, so I decided to put them all together to make it easier for you. So basically, Ben has been working on using these ColdFusion custom tags to create an HTML email DSL in Lucee. And so he's been doing this, basically he started a couple weeks back with a proof of concept that he worked on, and they've been using that inside this Envision transactional emails. Or actually, no, it's proof of concept to replace what they're doing currently. And it's pretty cool. I like the fact that in the newer blog post, he has a little repo and he's building it up. And basically, he's released 7 more blog posts this week on it. So I'm not going to show you all of them because they're just building on top of each other. But we're definitely going to walk through them. But he's got one saying using ColdFusion custom text to create an email DSL. He's got part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5, part 6, part 7. And part 8. And so a lot of, actually I don't see number 6, I must have missed that one. But we'll share a couple of screens here for some of it, and then obviously we'll link to his blog and you can get all the information there. So it's pretty cool. Like I said, it does have the GitHub project as well. And so you can see here he's been adding more and more to it. So he's got a lot of examples in here. He's got the example code here, but he's been doing stuff with dark mode and media queries and a lot of different things. It's really, really pretty neat to see all the different pieces he has. And so if you work through it, just go to the main part of his site, you'll see. So part 8, 7, there's 6. I'll have to add that to the show notes here, but a lot of good content working its way back. So definitely you need to check that series out. If you're doing emails at all, he's done a lot of good work in there, and I'm glad he's sharing his code. Make everyone's life easier. And he actually mentions a couple of tools in there as well if you're working with generating emails. There's some great tools. I think Litmus is the one he was using to preview all your code in different email providers. So very, very cool. So awesome work, Ben. Yeah. Life-saving for anyone who has to deal with emails. So next up we also have a blog post from Brad, and so this is actually someone that he was helping elsewhere, and he decided to put it into the community right here. That way you can keep track of it. But this one was basically a problem where somebody was having issues where it was taking like 2 seconds to run even a simple event in ColdBox, and Brad thought, well, that shouldn't be right, So he pulled out Fusion Reactor, and without Fusion Reactor we can get to the bottom of most things. And so basically what he figured out was it was custom tag paths that were basically being put in there. So the profile shows that the custom tag paths are being scanned basically almost every single time. And you can see in the output, you can see stuff over and over and over again. That's the benefit of Fusion Reactor. Instead of guessing what's actually happening, you can actually see exactly what's happening here. So the server in question had a lib folder, and that was basically being done. It had over 4,000 files in there. So every call to expand path was kicking off, or a recursive scan of the entire folder, which slowed the app down. So yeah, as he said, the main takeaway here is performance overhead can come from very unexpected places. And Fusion Reactor was integral in being able to locate the source of the issue. And that's pretty funny because isn't their company name Integral? So maybe Brad's being a smarty there and throwing a play on words. But again, that's a really cool little blog post, again saving it from Slack. But if you want to check that one out, it's in the show notes. Okay. We also have the blog post from Gregory Alexander on the cfblogs.org. Remember the new blog aggregator. So we talked about that one earlier. We also had a live stream. So Matthew Clemente is continuing his work on his Prism Js. So as you can see here, he's got another little video. It's about an hour long. And the funny thing is, in his tweet, he said, working on side projects for 1 hour a week means they take a really long time to get finished. So he's working on this one here where he's writing tests for Prism JS. And so, trial and error part 2. And so he's got the repo itself here, so you can check that out up on GitHub. And the video is kind of neat, showing a different testing system for this. So it's kind of cool to actually see that being worked out as well. But I know a lot of people excited about Prism JS, so you can have some really nice syntax highlighting in JavaScript for Cold Fusion. So I know Eric Peterson is pretty happy to see this one coming through. Okay, so it looks like we got a new blog series started up on the coldfusion.adobe.com portal. David Byers has been starting to release some articles on Cold Fusion 101. So he's got a couple out already. The first one is tags and scripts and functions. So I'll share a screen for that. And so this is assuming you have little to no knowledge about building web-based apps. You're using a modern version of Cold Fusion, so 2021 or 2018. And obviously, if you're not using those, maybe a little different. But so he basically walks through tags and scripts and sort of explains the differences and where they came from and why, and some of the examples. I thought it was kind of neat, maybe some good documentation for someone starting out. Shows the different syntaxes, talks about trailing slashes too. So, like setting a variable, you don't have to have a closing slash on a CF set, for example. And then talks about CF script. So kind of a nice little layout. It's an explanation here. Talks about semicolons and how they're optional most of the time. And obviously that'll bite people sometimes. But also talking about functions, built-in functions versus your own functions, and reaching out to learn CF in a week. For anyone who hasn't been to learn CF in a week, I know they did a lot of work a year or two ago and rewrote a lot of it and updated it. And TryCF and CFFiddle are great sites for you to execute your code without having to run a version of Cold Fusion yourself. So if you want to play around with it, you can do that. And then obviously, Command Box from Ortus Solutions is a free way to spin up and execute code locally as well. So TryCF is a pretty cool tool, just for anyone who hasn't seen it before. You got the little scratch pad right here, and the cool thing is you can pick quite a few different engine types. So you can pick Lucee 5, 4.5, Raylo, and then you've got Adobe 2021, 2018, 2016, 11, and 10. So if you want to see how your code runs on one or different engines, it's pretty easy to switch between them. So it's pretty neat if you haven't tried that. So that was one of the blog posts from David. He also had another one in there, different ways to create and add data to structures. And so this one was pretty neat too. Again, a lot of it's pretty straightforward, you would think, if you're using Cold Fusion all the time. But sometimes, you assume to know everything about the language you use day in, day out, but sometimes you'll find a trick or not. And so, he talks about what is a structure, how to create a structure, so struct new, using bracket notation, etc. How to put keys in something. And then so there's lots of different ways to set values. So he talks about struct insert, member functions, dot notation, bracket notation, and then JSON bracket notation as well. So lots of different ways to do it. And again, you probably use the same one over and over again, but just want to point out this one, the bracket notation here. This is usually a solution for everyone using evaluate in the old days, and he actually mentions it here. Using this because you can actually use Cold Fusion variables in the string as part of the name here. So again, pretty basic notes. But if you got a new developer or someone who just wants a refresher, I think this Cold Fusion 101 series would be pretty interesting. So thanks, David, for working on that. We also have a new blog post from the Working Code podcast. So if we look at Ben again, oh look, there's one with Carol. She's actually one of the members in the podcast. And so they're going to be talking about testing. So that's always an interesting one. So saying how most people sit in the middle of these extremes of testing. So they walk through and talk about their testing, etc. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to see the full spectrum. Yeah. Ben says he swings towards the manual side of testing, and Adam and Carol very much towards the automated, and Tim, he says, usually in the middle. But yeah, it's again another good podcast. And if you're wanting some more Cold Fusion related, although not specifically always Cold Fusion related, that's a good podcast there. Okay, and then we have Charlie Earhart actually released a couple of things on the Cold Fusion portal as well this last week, and so that was some good content, and we'll pop that open in a new window here for you too. So the first one was how to solve some out-of-memory metaspace errors, and so basically, this was originally written back in 2020, and then it's updated in 2021, because basically CF 2021 does no longer support max metaspace argument by default. And so basically, don't tweak the max metaspace, just remove it. That's basically the short of it. But if you want to find out more about it, he walks through, as usual, very Charlie detailed blog posts here. So definitely walk through this. He's got a little bit more information on his own blog site if you want to jump into that as well. And he also has another blog post talking about JVM as well. And again, this is a nice blog post if you need to mess with your JVM here. And this one was actually talking about when you're calling things using HTTPS via Cold Fusion. A lot of times people will try and add new certificates and import new certificates, but a lot of times it's just your JVM is very out of date. All the new JVMs that come out have the new core certificates, and actually updating those, importing them manually is a lot harder than just updating your JVM. And so this blog post talks about that. So check and see what version your JVM is, see what version you should be running on that, and Adobe has some important details on what they support and don't support, but definitely get through that. And again, Charlie's got great information in here, and figure out what it should be, but he also gives you a lot of details on why it should update it. And yeah, basically a lot of the JVM engines, I know I had to update JVM just recently it was Java 8, but I had to update from like update 151 to 262 or something just because of it. So yeah. Okay. So before we go, Adam Cameron apparently released a highly or lightly opinionated blog on the testing working code podcast. Adam apparently encouraged them to do sort of make a response. So let me see if I can find that real quick here. We'll see if we can share that real quick here. So it's got a lot of blogs in here, but maybe David, if you can find the link and share it, I'd be happy to post it in here. Oh, I think I found it. So I'll share this. So some thoughts on the Working Code podcast testing episode. And so it's an interesting take on a techno podcast in their own words from their strapline. Okay. So what he said for most of what they said was poor. So basically, after he had a little discussion, he decided to write back. So Adam's got a little rebuttal here, some comments for some of the different people, and he made comments about all the different peoples and what they said at different parts. So if you really want a sort of in-depth Adam take on it, yeah, you can probably check through it. But yeah, Adam was very, very, very adamant in the way he tests. He found a lot of problems with ColdFusion over the years and reported a lot to Adobe, and there's probably half of the bugs in the bug tracker from Adam. Very good tester, very analytical mind when it comes to that. So I would read this and probably listen to the podcast first and then read through this, because I would, Adam's an interesting character. He's a Kiwi too, so don't hold it against him too much. But yeah, it's definitely worth reading. I mean, he's a well-experienced developer. Definitely does TDD and testing, and as David said in the chat, even Sean Caulfield chimed in the comments as well. So yeah, I'm gonna have to read through this one completely as well, because it's pretty interesting. So very cool. So thanks for sharing that, David. That's why I like having chat. You guys keep me on my toes here. So let me just share that one and put that link in here as well. Adam's response. That way, show notes are good. I'll put it in here for anyone who wants to read it as well. Okay, well, that wraps up our blogs, tweets, and comments of the week. No, sorry, videos of the week. Next up, we have Find a Job. And this week, we have about 6 new jobs. I think some of them were posted on the same day that we did the last podcast. But if you look here, so we may have already talked about a couple of these here from Sydney and Melbourne. We have a couple probably duplicates here. But we also have a senior developer remote in the United States, and a web ColdFusion developer, and Ahmedad, and I can never pronounce that name. Gujarat, I don't know, but in India. So a couple of more full-time positions. We have a lot of full-time positions listed here. So if you want to find out more information, you can go to getcfmljobs.com and click on it here and find out a little bit more about the company that they might be working for. Look at some of the experience here. So they're looking for Python or ColdFusion with Git and SQL, Agile methodologies, bachelor degree, some pretty good benefits, etc. So getcfmljobs.com. Got quite a few good listings there from the start of the new year. And again, 6 new jobs this week. So pretty cool. Okay, so let's talk about our ForgeBox module of the week. So I know for a long time, Giancarlo's been doing WebSocket sessions for Adobe ColdFusion, but there's always been kind of a missing piece in Lucee. They don't have a server piece. A lot of people just use Socket.io, JavaScript, side of things, and it works pretty good. But this week we're going to be talking about a new project, which is still an alpha, I admit, but it's Socket.io-Lucee. So it's a Socket.io protocol for Lucee. And so it's a server implementation for the Lucee server. It's a JavaScript library for real-time applications. And so basically they put it up as a ForgeBox entry. They say it is currently in an alpha state, which means it's suitable for experimenting with, but unlikely that it's ready for production use. So they've implemented the core features, but there's still lots to do. And so, yeah, basically it's, talking about different versions and everything else, but I thought it was kind of neat just to spotlight it. I know we've been talking about lots of different ways to get it working. Brad has been using Stomp over REST with RabbitMQ with some WebSockets and really likes it, and that's sort of something that's always kind of been missing from Lucee. So I just thought I'd share it, and you guys can have a look at it. And see Giancarlo's in the chat right now, so he's going to go play with that and see. And yeah, I think if everyone can get in there and play a little bit, give them some feedback, and then maybe they can make some improvements and work on it, because WebSockets for Lucee's definitely been missing. I know with command box we have the run wire underneath it, and there's some WebSocket support in there that we're trying to tap into, so we've been looking at that. It's one of the tickets in command box that we're hoping to get out sometime as well. But obviously if you're running Lucee without command box, then those WebSockets wouldn't work either. So this might be a nice solution. And so there's some code in here for the Lucee code. There's some code on the front end to be able to communicate with it. So I thought it was pretty neat just to try out. So if you guys are wanting to play with WebSockets a little bit, give it a go. And yeah, Giancarlo, if you definitely remember, if you get a chance to play with it, give them some feedback, since you seem to be the WebSocket guru of the ColdFusion community. Okay. Next up, we have our VSCode hints, tip, and trick of the week. And this one's a pretty cool one. So Eric Peterson found this one and sent it to me so we could include it, even though he couldn't be here today. But this one is called Footsteps. And it's called Footsteps because it tracks your footsteps around your code. So as you're changing stuff and typing, basically as you move around your code, it keeps track of where you were. And so when you first leave a line, it's very bright. And over time, it slowly fades, so you can see where you were and where you're going to, and it's kind of neat. And so it just slowly fades as you change from line to line, and that way you have an idea of what else you've been changing. So I thought it was a pretty cool little idea, and I'm definitely going to get this one installed here after the podcast. And you can also jump between the lines using Control-Alt-Left and Control-Alt-Right, so you can jump back and forward in the lines you've been working on. So if you're helps you easily identify what you're actually changing. So pretty neat. And there seems to be quite a lot of extension settings, so like footsteps, highlight color, and color max opacity, and do highlight changes, etc. So you can mess with that a little bit here. And there are some commands as well, so you can skip back, skip forwards, skip back, same file, skip forward, same file. And you can actually skip to other files. So if you're working in 3 or 4 files, it'll actually track that as well, so you can jump between them. So it's pretty neat. I really love all these little ideas that people have. Like, this is something I would have never thought of, but now we found it. I'm like, this is pretty awesome. So I like seeing those weird things that just pop up on Twitter, and you're like, I gotta get that too. So again, that's Footsteps, and it's available on the marketplace, and I'll share that in the chat. I didn't share the Lucee socket one either. Sorry guys, usually we have 2 people on here, and it's easy to get those links into the chat for everybody. I'm a little slow on that myself. Okay. So next up, we get to our Patreon supporters. So thank you again to all our Patreon supporters. Again, we're up to 65%, so we're basically more than 2/3 funded by our Patreon supporters for this podcast. And obviously, our Patreon support not only covers this podcast, but we work to things like CommandBox, ForgeBox, CodeBox, ContentBox, TestBox, all the other free and open source products we have are supported by Patreon as well. And we really appreciate your community support. So we really want to thank you. And as we mentioned a couple weeks ago, if you're a Patreon supporter now, there are some benefits for you. So all Patreon supporters now get their own private forum access on the community website. And you also get a special badge, a profile badge on the Ortus community website. But if you're a bronze package or up, you now get a ForgeBox Pro and a CFCast subscription as a perk for your Patreon subscription. So I know that a few people were paying for both, and now they're combined it, and that's why we jumped up a little bit this week for our Patreon support, and that's because they're basically taking their CF subscription and putting it into Patreon, so we've got bigger Patreon supporters, and it's really nice to see that, and we appreciate each and every one of you. And so, with that being said, let me thank our Patreon supporters. So thank you Don Bellamy, Eric Hoffman, Gary Knight, Giancarlo Gomez, Mario Rodriguez, John Wilson from Synaptrix, Joseph Lamery, Ben Nadal, Brett DeLine, Carl Van Staten, Charlie Earhart, Dan Carr, Daniel Garcia, David Ballinger, Didier Lesnicki, Edgardo Gasparis, Jan Yannick, Jason Diker, Jeff McLean, Jeremy Adams, Joseph Erickson, Jordan Clark, Kai Koenig, Lex Materhadi, Leon Samarelis, Matthew Darby, Matthew Comenti, Mingo Hagen, Patrick Flynn, Ross Phillips, Scott Steinberg, Yogesh Mesur, and Stephen Klotz. And I know that David Ballinger just bumped up his one this week, switching from CFCast back over. So I want to say thanks, David. And I'm sure that there was a couple more that did it. And so thank you to anyone else switching. And we really appreciate each and every one of you for spending your hard-earned money to support our open source and our podcast. So we want to, give you all the best we can, and just all these things help for sure. So we really appreciate it. So again, hopefully all of you guys in the back east are doing well and looking after yourselves. I know a lot of the people in Texas and Kansas and everything are under snow and having power issues right now. So sorry you had to listen to me the whole time today. But thanks everybody for listening and watching, and we'll see you all next week, and hopefully some of the guys will be able to join us as well. So have a great one, everybody. Thanks a lot. Show notes for this episode can be found at cfmlnews.modernizeordie.io, where you can also subscribe to your favorite podcast player like Spotify or iTunes. We also have the link to YouTube to find more videos just like this. The music used in this podcast is under a royalty-free license from Sound.com and Blue Tree Audio.